did it. We're live. God, I hope that everything is working.
You were here at the Blacksburg Station.
No, I've never been to any of them. My first one. I think it's all right. I think it's capturing the sound in it. I had Tyler put it in. He said everything's good, so.
We'll find out.
I'm going to transcribe meeting minutes as I go, just in case.
What's that?
I'm going to transcribe meeting minutes as I go, just in case. Yeah. I'm taking meetings a long time. Is my mic on? Oh, do you have to push it to stop?
To stop.
To stop? Push it?
Well, just hold on to it. So now it's off. Now it's on.
Oh. Okay. As long as I get to call you Gregory. Don't tap the glass. Commissioners don't want to get it. Oh, also, I have these for you and Ariana to sign for all the ones we're going to do. Can you get a signature after we're done? All the files.
The only problem is we have to put it in.
It's going really well. I'm really glad you've gone now so long. You see what we're here?
I want to, but like our summer cities, I'll. Yeah. Grams into, once that grams
Understood.
I saw that. Do I have to, I have to see where I'm going to sit? Oh, I'm over there. Okay. Put me next to Bill.
I wasn't sure where they wanted to sit.
Can I be closer so I can talk to you?
I'm sorry?
Should it be closer so I can talk to you?
We can move you. You want to move? I'll move you right now.
Yeah, I just gotta.
No offense, Bill. I'm just going to be a little closer so I can hear you.
All right.
Okay.
Move mine over to where she is, because that's a bigger spot. It's less claustrophobic. This
Can I be in
was,
this spot?
this one's on a shelf right here.
Yeah, be careful.
Yeah.
Yes, you just texted me. Just happiness.
I know they have internet. Well, if he tested it,
Hey, he let you know he wasn't going to be here.
I'm sure he just has, you know, text service, not full data. So.
I'm sure.
All right. Whoa. Let's see. As soon as Coco's done and comes back inside, then we'll get going because there'll be four of us. Oh my God.
We're waiting up on.
Coco I saw had stepped outside. So.
Oh, Coco's here? Okay, nice. Yeah.
we're spreading out a little bit. We're spreading out a little bit to get a little.
The illusion that
Make it appear
there's,
like a raucous room.
there's more folks here.
So I know Carmen texted me, you're going to hear from her. Okay.
Oh, Jamie Fairday said that he was going to try to join on Teams, but he wasn't sure because he was going to be out of town.
I'll text Patty.
Is if they don't show back up.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I don't think that we're asking for a quorum today. I don't think there's anything on the agenda that has any actions.
No, we were just hoping to get
Are we waiting on a quorum?
Right on.
Diane now to take it.
Just pop in the side.
We'll do that next time.
Yeah, we're not gonna get a writer's cramp somewhere.
Okay, that's not, that's gonna take care of it.
Got a lot to say.
I think the big thing we talked about in the past in the front end is,
So if you're relaxed and
I see what she did.
this is sad. It's great to see Because you did that last time.
Right.
That was scrambling.
No, it was just fine. You held it together, but we are very, very.
I was good to show.
There's a lot of buttons in here. Like, there's a lot to set up through.
There it is. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That Sam brings up a lot of experience with her, a lot of knowledge, and just a super great
You're not really there.
Oh, because it's super great attitude.
Yes. All right, we'll go ahead and call order and have Coco come in. We'll just get going.
Okay, sounds great.
Good afternoon. I'm going to go ahead and call to order the Parks Commission for the City of Coos Bay, January 19th. It is 4:07. We'll do a roll call online. Bev? We've got Bev Myers online.
She's muted.
I know. She's now typing. We see you, Bev.
Way better or something.
And then
Bill Davis?
Ariane Lyons.
Greg Hamlet, City of Coos Bay.
Oh, Sam Nelson, City of Coos Bay.
Thank you. We do not have a quorum, so we will skip the approval of meeting minutes, and we will put that on the agenda for next time. We'll move into citizen input public comment, not related to agenda items. Glad we're not talking about swans or other things, otherwise we'd have a room full. And then we'll move on down to discussion regarding budget and resources.
Good afternoon. I asked if staff would put me on the agenda. The council received the Parks Commission's desires to have a conversation about funding, and obviously we understand what the issue is. There's lots of needs for the park, but yet little dollars that are allocated to it. And maybe a little perspective is in order. Just so everybody understands, you know, the city collects property taxes, and the amount of property taxes collected by the city isn't enough by itself to even fund public safety. So then it becomes a little difficult. How do we allocate dollars? How do we get enough dollars to do what we do? And the reality is it's tight. We do get other funds, such as franchise fees, that help make up the difference, that allows us to fund the basic services, but there's just not enough dollars to set aside every budget season for parks-related projects. So, what we're going to propose in this year's budget, and hopefully moving forward, is to set aside $50,000 in an effort to hire a grant writer to do parks-related projects. But that in and of itself won't be enough, because just about every grant out there requires match. So the second thing we're going to propose is, starting this next budget year, is setting aside $25,000 in a dedicated line item, meaning that if it's not spent within the budget year, it rolls over and gets added to the next budget year, so it does build. But that is our proposal, and we've had a couple discussions with the mayor and the council president on that, so that we can at least start building something somewhere. And that way, we can also, through a grant writer, we can have someone that is dedicated to that specific task with subject matter expertise, and time capacity. While we may have some great writers here at the city, the reality is we don't have enough time resource to dedicate them to just grants. So that's where we're heading to. As to which project gets the highest priority, I'd have to say that will really depend on what grant source is available and how that works. So, but I think staff is listening to the Parks Commission, and we're trying to find some solutions.
Thank you, Roger. I think that it was primarily our concern is building up some sort of fund so that we can go after these grants and match it, because I think it is the consensus of the Parks Commission that we know that without some major grants, we're not going to get this stuff done.
Well, I can say some benefits of including a portion of John Toppett's Park into the urban renewal district does provide an opportunity for maybe a source to find match in. We saw just recently when the fencing, the new ornamental fencing went around Ed Lund Park, that actually came through urban renewal funds. So that helps. And a project we're undertaking at the boat ramp, the repair and upgrade of the fishing / crabbing dock is coming out of urban renewal funds. So we're looking at various things. Occasionally, if there are sufficient funds, there's always the possibility that we can do some match out of, I think that's Fund 10, and that's the transient lodging tax. But it may be a little bit from here and a little bit from there so that we can find match.
So I think we're happy that there's some funds going there. Any additional commissioner comments? Patty, I saw you unmuted and muted back. Do you have a comment? I think she's frozen. Any additional commissioner comments in relation to the 23-24 budget and the budget moving forward? Would the grant writer be just for parks grants or just a grant writer in general for the city?
At least the $50,000 we're hoping to set aside will be in the parks section of the budget. So those monies will be geared towards someone writing grants for parks. And it's quite possible that we may be able to find someone with subject matter expertise, not in just writing grants, but for recreational investments.
Don't grant writers sometimes take like a commission too or something, get a percentage?
Well, we generally do not go with commission.
Okay.
What we've used in the past is we pay for the actual writing of the grant, for their time and materials to write the grant. We generally steer away from anybody that's looking for commission because generally they want a percentage of the grant received. So if you get, such as dredging for the pond, if you get $1 million grant and they want 10%,
True.
then that's a little more difficult. And most grants that you receive will not allow for that payment.
Okay, I wasn't sure. Are there other sources of funding? People donating from the community? Is there any type of effort like that going on?
There's not one currently, but there certainly could be. I mean, you did receive a bequeath in the past for the parks. That could happen. The library is a recent recipient due to the generosity of a man that passed away who provided more than a couple $1 million towards the building of the new library. So that's possible. But there are a number of different possible funding sources, not to be limited to the 2 tribes. There actually are 3 tribes that serve this area and provide grants. Obviously, the Berea Hospital has a foundation, the Judith Ann Mogan. There are just a number of them. The trick is tapping something that is of interest to them and having a persuasive argument to fund.
So parks are a healthy thing to have.
Exactly.
So
I don't
hospitals should
disagree.
be promoting park recreation.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is that we're certainly trying to get more resources. Over the last couple of years, our resources have been drained from our parks because some of those resources are going to mitigation on the homeless crisis that we have. There is a request out through the Oregon Mayor's Association currently for a legislative allotment to come to cities based on per capita to offset those expenses. Should that come, then some of those monies may be dedicated to hiring people to take on those tasks so that our staff can go back to their core duties in the parks.
Okay. Good.
Any other additional commissioner comments? Coco? No? Okay. Thank you, Roger.
Thank you.
Thank you, Roger.
And then the discussion regarding historical work performed, Mingus Pond dredging, John Toppet's Bridge.
So at the December 15th Parks Commission meeting, it was requested by the commission to kind of figure out what has been done or what's transpired at the parks, specifically in regards to Mingus Park dredging and the bridge at John Toppet's Park. I've been in my current role for about a year. In that time, I haven't had very many discussions regarding the bridge at John Toppet's Park, but I was involved with some discussions in the dredging of Mingus Pond. So what I like to do is I kind of put down some thoughts in regards to what's transpired, not only just in my time, but maybe what's transpired previous to my position and in regards to the two projects. So project number one, Mingus Park dredging, staff has been working on this issue for several years. Staff started a grant application in 2019 with the Oregon Park and Recreation Department and Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife. It is my understanding at the time that the grant application with OPRD was suspended due to the COVID pandemic, and support for the ODFW side of the grant was halted due to ODFW methodology for dredging was their design criteria were changed. Staff is working with the CDC for grant writing at the time to move that grant along, but kind of all fell through. Another obstacle that happened at that same time was that ODFW changed their preferred methodology of dredging. They've gone from a more traditional shovel dredging that you see in the bay to what they call as a suction dredging, where they suck the material out into dewatering bags and then you haul the material off. Right now, in 2021, they started a pilot program at John Day Park, I believe it was, or an enterprise. They started the pilot program there to see how it goes. They were going to report on how it assessed and how it did, but we haven't received that report yet from ODFW. And so that suction dredging, although it lowers their turbidity levels of the waters and maybe not affect the fish or the aquatic vegetation, because now you're clouding the water, it is also not very cost effective, or is not as cost effective as traditional shovel dredging. And so we're still waiting on that report back from ODFW on how they would like us to proceed with dredging. The second thing from ODFW is they also changed their design for their fishing piers. The original design was 4 fishing piers at Mingus on piles. They've changed that requirement now to more of a cantilever type fishing dock or fishing pier. Once again, just changing the plans on us. We were at that point, but then it all got changed. So with that, we weren't able to move further along in the process at Minkus Park with the dredging. The second project is the footbridge at John Toppitz. My understanding is that the bridge was vandalized or was set afire in 2000, and that funding to repair the bridge was not available, and due to that, it kind of fell into disrepair. Since the failure of the structure, opportunities for funding have come and gone, and in that time, the bridge continued to dilapidate, and finally it was removed by city staff for safety purposes. At some point, it was kind of being used as kind of a fishing pier. People were still going out onto the broken or damaged bridge and using it. It was deemed unsafe, and the city removed that. In 2006, the city reached out to the Dyer Partnership to develop an estimate for and plans for the repair. The city received an estimate in 2006 dollars of $161,475. The budget for the 2006-2007 for the park was $205,678. So that would have exhausted the entire budget, and we didn't have the budget to be able to move forward with that project. Also in 2008, there appeared to be a partnership with SWAC and the city of Coos Bay for grant opportunities. Funding for match was just not available, and so that kind of went by the wayside as well. In 2019, the city reached out to SHN to do a geological engineering expedition out there, investigation, to see what is going to be required. At the time, SHN performed the geotechnical investigation. Piles would have to be driven into the lake, and concrete footings on either side at all locations would have to be about 4 foot thick in concrete set on rock. Because we've never had funding, we've never really been able to get beyond the conception or the design, so we've never moved into the environmental permitting process, which that process requires us to have plans and designs to move forward in getting the environmental permitting done to do both of these projects. Both of these projects are going to require heavy involvement with the Army Corps of Engineers and Department of State Lands for permitting for both of those. So we've never moved into that because we just haven't gotten to that point for design to be able to present and get approvals for those designs. So in a nutshell, I know that's very abbreviated, and I know that there's probably been other work that's happened in the past that maybe I'm not aware of or staff is not aware of, but we do have a desire, a shared desire, to do these projects. Bill, you're absolutely right. A healthy community is involved with our healthy parks, and so we have that desire, but it's just funding, like Roger was explaining, is tough to come by, and so that's kind of where we're at right now.
Thank you. Commissioner comments?
Yes, this is Coco Sutton, and I was wondering, when you're looking at dealing with Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife, their focus is going to be on something with the fishing and wildlife issue. My understanding on project number 1, at a minimum, we want to get the dredging completed. So do we have to couple with the ODF&W fishing issues?
I'm sorry, can you ask your question? I'm not sure if I understand your question.
Coco, I think my understanding historically is the reason why we coupled with ODF&W for the fishing piers was that was they wanted that in request for the massive amount of funds it'll take to dredge the pond. Because unfortunately, with the pond waste being biohazards, they were going to be providing a substantial grant, and part of that substantial grant was the requirement to do the fishing piers.
Because it seems to me that, and I used to work for ODF&W, disclosure, it seems to me that number 2 in the footbridge design would be a better place to have fishing pop-outs. And that's a bigger bucket of money that you're looking at there, and you don't have the issues with the draining of the pond. So it's just a thought.
Yeah, the fishing piers came about, if I'm remembering correctly, and Patty and Bill, you could correct me if I'm wrong because you've been on here longer, but it was if you want money to dredge, then you want more equitable access to fishing, and they're
Right.
requiring it to be in the location that the funds were spent.
So I just would like to comment that to get the dredging done, I would think that decoupling it right now from an ODF and W moving target, because that's always going to be a moving target, and maybe looking more at other sources of funding with the land water conservation pass-through might get it done quicker without the moving target issue that comes up with fishing and map money and things like that.
Yeah, I think ODFW, I think, in this conversations before my time, was they were going to be partnering with OPRD to kind of help us move that project along. And some of those conversations that we had back in December of 2021 while they were on site was maybe even doing pocketed dredging for the ODFW side of things for their grant. But I'm not sure if that's the best way to go about it. But, you know, we're open to the conversation with all of our funding sources to get those dollars because it is important. So we're not. I don't want to limit ourselves to not including ODFW.
I would just hate to see us take on more structures. Cantilevering is a tricky business to maintain. So that was just my comment on that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Coco. Bill, can you comment? Patty? I can't tell if Bev's on there still. I think that's a good point, looking at any options, and I think that's why I'm excited the city is hiring a grant writer so that we can look at all of the different opportunities, with the priority being, of course, to do the dredging, and then whatever those grant opportunities then would require in return. So.
Agreed.
Hard to think that when I was a kid, they would just send us out there with buckets and we would do it ourselves. Does that maybe why I have these weird, no, just, I have gills now or something. Let's see. We did have Bev and Patty online, but now we do not. So I was going to sneak in the approval of the minutes, but now we are back to not having a quorum. So we will skip that again for next time. Any staff or commissioner closing comments?
Yes, I've got a couple of introductions to do. We have brought in Dave Wagner as the city's new transportation facilities superintendent. Dave will be working with the Parks Commission in the future, and we are excited to have him on board and taking care of our transportation facility needs. The second person I would like to introduce is Sam Nelson, our new contract administrator for the city of Coos Bay. She is going to be attending the Park Commission meetings and taking notes and minutes, and I just wanted to introduce both of these staff members to the commission.
Welcome. Thank you. Jim, you just observing today?
Just observing.
All right. Coco, any closing comments?
No, I just think that having some very focused items, there is a lot, as you mentioned, between the tribes, the Judith Ann Morgan Foundation, what's the core of the park that we talked about? If that focus is on these projects, I think staying with that and not letting so much time go by would be excellent if you get a grant writer. So it's nice to see that's going to happen.
Closing comments, Bill? No? Okay. I would just like to say I appreciate new city staff coming on, and we'll try not to scare you off. And we're making some great movement towards parks, and I do appreciate having some dedicated line items in the budget. That helps us move forward in some sort of path. So I appreciate everyone coming in today, and we will adjourn.
Thank you.
And thank you for the plaques, the name plaques, so people know who we are on YouTube with our names.
Yes.
So everybody pick their spots now, that's where you'll be forever.